Welcome to Converge's special speaker series on how coaching is the best type of leadership. Mark Izzo, the founder and CEO of Converge, will be our moderator, and we have two guest speakers that Mark will be introducing in about a minute. But a few housekeeping items. We will be recording this meeting, and we will send out copies to everyone who joined or signed up. Please keep yourselves on mute. And if you have any questions during the call, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will be monitoring it, and we'll jump in with those questions as they come up. I'll
Thanks,
give it over to you, Mark.
Thank you. Has Edgar joined?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully additional folks will join us. The format of the speaker series is that we'll do some quick welcome and introductions to our speakers. I'll moderate a panel discussion. We'll ask for closing statements from both speakers, and then give them an opportunity to give you a short commercial before we break. The entire session should last about an hour. And I hope to have an interactive discussion between Keegan and Edgar. And as Anna stated, please feel free to ask any questions through the chat, and she'll monitor that and let us know. So let's jump right in. Keegan Schaefer, Coach Keeg of Coach Keeg Consulting, operates with purpose, connection, heart, and drive in order to identify and help and pursue one's life purpose and focus one's present life in order to break through to the highest level of energy, fulfillment, and productivity. Keegan's passion lies in cultivating strong relationships that leads into prosperous vision, helping you operate at your best self, utilizing your unique abilities and strengths to change the world for the person that needs your knowledge, product, or your service. The mission of Keegan Schaefer is to impact 1 million lives throughout the coaching journey. He loves to hear about your goals and how he can help you achieve them. Originally from Cameroon and raised in New York City, Edgar Ndjatou is passionate about creating workplaces that value fair treatment, trust, and open communication. Edgar is the founding principal of Officium LLC, and Officium helps organizations embed policies, procedures, and systems that achieve compliance with the numerous laws and regulations governing the employment relationship. The company also develops an effective human capital management strategy and infrastructure to address recruiting and retention needs. Additionally, since October of 2019, Edgar has served as the executive director of Workplace Fairness. Workplace Fairness is a nonprofit that provides information, education, and assistance to individuals, workers, and their advocates nationwide, and promotes public policy that advance employee rights. In his free time, Edgar is a big sports fan, podcast listener, and follows current events and politics. Welcome to you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. Look forward to an interactive discussion. So let's jump right in. The title of today's session is Coaching is the Best Leadership. Let's start with Keegan on this one, and just give us an overview of that title. What do we mean by coaching is the best leadership?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you everyone for your presence. Thank you for your time today. I would assume, just real quick before we dive in, out of my own curiosity, who is currently in a leadership role? Can we just get a raise of hands? So just about everybody here. Okay, great. So again, the specificity for today is coaching is the best leadership. The reason behind this, I don't know, maybe you guys have experienced this yourself, but I remember being in the workforce and having this whole bureaucratic take. It was more of a dictatorship. It was, do this, this is how we want it done, go get it done. And the only time you ever heard from a manager was when you did something wrong. This drove me crazy. Has anybody else experienced this? It's the worst. It doesn't breed good results. And so today, what we're focusing on is being the most effective leader using a coaching approach. And so on my half, I'm going to focus on 3 particular areas. and that is going to be on culture, which is funny. Somebody mentioned that before. Culture, the power of questions, and knowing your people. So we'll dive into this. You guys will have a PDF. You'll have some examples. We'll love to make this as interactive as possible. I know Edgar's got some incredible stuff on the HR side, but again, for clarity, today is going to be giving you guys gifts, tips, skills, tricks to help become a better leader, leveraging coaching.
Thank you, Keegan. Edgar, can you give me your take on that, on the title of today's event?
Yeah, in the HR world, I can echo what Keegan had just mentioned about how sometimes workplaces are not open when it comes to the way that leadership of an organization interacts with employees. And the reason why this title is so important to me and why it resonated with me and I decided to participate in this conversation today is because I feel that coaching leadership is directly tied to retention, right? The more that leaders of an organization are willing to see their blind spots and receive coaching, become better leaders, it impacts the way that they relate to their employees, right? And so instead of the scenario where you might hear from your manager only times when you do something wrong, when that is flipped a different way, right? And it's more about how to make you your best self at work. And also that positive reinforcement that coaching brings, it leads to much healthier workplaces. And that increases retention. People are more likely to stay at a place if they feel welcome, if they feel supported, if they feel that at every turn, management is there to make them be their best selves in whatever role they're occupying in, at the company or at the organization. So that's why this is such an important title for me. And I believe that we're starting to see more and more of this, but I think we can do a better job across the board. And my hope is that we can have a very candid conversation around this topic today and give everyone something, some golden nugget they can take with them that would help them, one, advocate for yourself, right? Like, what are you looking for, in terms of leadership, and also for leaders to give you more tools to embrace this, way of thinking when it comes to managing staff.
Thank you. Keegan, discuss, if you would, the differences between sort of the management power, in quotes, right, and coaching. What's the difference between management power and coaching?
Excellent question. Management power is more leading a horse to water. This is how we get something done. Go do it this way, right? And I think that all of us can relate to this because we've been systematized to operate this way. When you were a baby, what happened? Your guardians said, hey, stop doing it this way. This is the way we do something. And then you graduate into elementary school. And there's somebody at the front of the room that says, here's a problem. This is how we solve it. Here's the solution. Go figure it out. And then we graduate from school and we get into the workforce. And somebody says, this is the result we're looking for. Go out and make it happen. And so we've systematically been built to just show up and listen. And I think that's tough because when we think about the management style, often we'll have people that operate under that same domain. Hey, show up. This is the result we need. And you don't get to express any individuality. So the flip side of that and leveraging coaching in the management world is asking questions, not telling somebody, but being more open-ended. And I'll get into this a little bit more with those 3 points, but this just brings the walls down. It makes easy conversation. It increases buy-in. Look, if we're a leader, we all have a bottom line we're shooting for, whatever that is, more widgets sold, more people hired, whatever that is. In order for us to get there the quickest, we have to have our people on our side when we are not in the room, when we're not looking over their shoulder. In fact, if we don't have to take that approach, that's going to get the best results because now you have people that are showing up early. You have people that are leaving late. You have people that are working on the weekends. But if you're forcing them to do it, people don't want to be told what to do. If you're asking them to do it, they're going to give you their buy-in, and that gets the best results. So that's my take on it.
Edgar, would you address that as well? Management power versus the concept of coaching? Because I can throw my power around, but that
Right.
I don't know how far that really gets me, right? So
Yeah, I think to start, I would want to say the phrase maybe to spin management power on its head and maybe call it management empowerment, right? The idea of empowering yourself and the people around you to be transparent, to be candid about what expectations are, right? And putting on my HR hat, right? What Keegan has said is very true, right? We're so conditioned to be told what to do, right? And I think we want to start developing workplaces where, yeah, there's an element of that, right? But people also have some um say in what's expected of them, right? And how they're going to be spoken to, right? And a few things that I find that are effective to get to that place is being very clear about what expectations are of someone and what will make them a good performer in position, right? And that and right, yes, you have a job description that I think is always a good thing to do, right? But there should be at least a few times a year where you're checking in with people to ensure that one, that they're able to do the job duties that you laid out for them, that they're able to meet those expectations, and also get a sense as to if they have any struggles meet expectations, right? And those things may not be necessarily related to the job, right? Things might have changed in their personal life that you might have to adjust what's expected of somebody, right? If they maybe have a new child or a sick parent or going through a tough time, right? Maybe the needs of business have changed, right? And you have to now address it, right? But I think empowerment makes things a little more open and not rigid, right? Because again, the idea is you want people to be their best selves at work, right? And from an HR perspective, you have to put in things in place to allow you to do that. Because here's the thing, right? This stuff doesn't always come naturally to people. For some people, it comes very naturally. But I'm a big proponent of for many of these things we talk about, it's a skill set you have to learn, right? And the best way to learn skill sets like this is you have to put yourself in a position to do that, right? So it might mean you need the right HR policies or procedures in place, to develop those best practices, right? Because it doesn't always come naturally, to everyone, right? We have to work at these things, right? So the one nugget, at least from this part of the conversation, I want you all to think about is empowerment, not power, right? Power is easy to throw around, right? It's you have the power to do something, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. Empowerment's a little harder, right? It takes more effort and time, right? It takes buy-in, from your employees, right? And I think that's where we want to have the focus moving forward.
you raise an interesting point that I'd like for both of you to address, and that is the idea of coaching as is this based on genetics and I'm hardwired with these skills, or are they learned skills? Edgar, since you brought that up, why don't you address it first, and then we'll switch over to Keegan.
Yeah, I would say that whether it's something that you're naturally talented at doing or not, it is a skill you have to perfect over time, right? And part of it is that, particularly when you're doing with people, not everyone's the same, right? People are motivated by different things, right? Or come from different circumstances, and or you're in a situation where the at the circumstances around you will dictate how you respond with coaching, right? And it's a practice, right? You have to work at it, and different things will bring out certain skill sets that you have in this, right? So if you feel you're someone that is naturally capable of doing this, I wouldn't say that means that you are able to walk in any situation and just be perfect at this. You have to work at it, right? And it does take a level of emotional intelligence, experience, care, compassion, right? Just because you're naturally good doesn't mean you're compassionate. And I think that's a very key element of being a good coach or having good coaching skills is compassion. And so I would say that having the natural ability is certainly a leg up, but you still have to work at it, right? And that comes with practice and cultivating the skill set.
Keegan, your thoughts on it? Am I born as a coach, or do I learn through skills to become an effective coach?
Personally, I believe it's absolutely learned. I don't think that you're born a good communicator. This is something that every person has to work on. And the great thing is, this is a transferable skill, meaning it's not just limited to the workforce. This is going to be effective in romantic relationships, as a parent, as a friend, as a son or a daughter. I mean, communication is highly sought after in any arena, but it's absolutely a learned skill.
Got it. Okay. Let's switch gears for a moment. We've talked a bit about coaching so far, and we're going to continue that discussion. But I want to know about the role of coaching as it relates to relationship building in the workplace. Keegan, would you address that?
Absolutely. Would it be acceptable to share my screen at this point, Mark, and reference that first point?
Sure.
Great. So again, to answer your question, I'll share this quote as we're shifting gears a little bit because I think it's applicable. Coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. It is helping them to learn rather than teaching them. Sir John Whitmore. So to really get into this question, Mark, I think that I really focus on culture. Just by a quick raise of hands, who in here has company culture right now? Everybody's hand should go up, right? Company culture. Thank you, Jennifer. I love that. The hand emoji. Company culture is just like gravity. It's always operating. Does everybody have a pen or pencil right now? Can everybody grab your pen or pencil real quick and just hold it up to the screen? If you hold your pen or pencil up right now and hold it up to the screen, on the count of 3, I'm going to ask everybody to drop your pen or pencil. Okay? 1, 2, 3. All right. Let's do some data, some research. Lissa, what happened to your pen or pencil?
My pencil dropped.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Alan, what happened to yours?
Dropped like a rock.
Oh my God. Where are you geographically?
Right outside Philadelphia, about 30 minutes.
I love that backdrop, by the way. So you're in Philly. I'm in Virginia. Miss Jennifer Adams, what happened to your pen or pencil? It dropped. I saw the
It
map.
also dropped.
Awesome. And where are you located geographically?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. So that's the power of gravity, right? It's always operating. Whether you're dropping your pen or pencil or not, it's always operating. And this is the same thing with culture. Within your organization, you are supporting a culture, whether you're consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it. It's always there. So, and again, this is a sheet that everybody either has or will have, but I would ask you to fill this out at this current time or independently. It's all right here, though. Creating a culture is done either intentionally or unintentionally with all groups of people. It's always happening, right? Essentially what these are agreements that we all come together on and adhere to. Those agreements create the actions and they become common habit. So this is always occurring. Here's something I see all the time. What culture is not? Culture is not a ping pong table in the corner. It's not the snack bar. It's not having a bar in your office and having a happy hour Friday night. It's not letting your favorite employees slide or picking favorites. That's not what culture is. What culture actually is, these are the standards that we hold in honor. These are the values that we have as an organization, the systems we have in place. the expectations, and the beliefs. So before I pass this back to you, Mark, out of curiosity, does anybody have a good example of a moment that they upheld culture within their organization? What's a moment you held culture in your organization?
I can answer, but I'd rather have participant.
I can share.
involvement.
I can share. One of our values is integrity, and that means to do the right thing, even when it's not popular or when nobody knows that it's the right thing or that you are doing the right thing. And with a client recently, I had to deliver some news that would not have made them happy. It was not good news for them. And they wouldn't have appreciated it, but it was something that I had to do, and I didn't want to have to do it, but I did. So, that I think it speaks to our values. It's what we are based on and built upon. And without it, we wouldn't be able to operate the way that we want to operate. And so that is built in to what we do. It's built in not just for me, but for my fellow colleagues as well. And I think that is an example of culture.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. It brings up a really important point. We mentioned this in here, the values. That's part of culture. And it's so interesting, Jennifer, that you brought up integrity, because two of the ones that I hear the most common are integrity and honesty. I was in the financial world for about 9 years, and I actually worked with a Fortune 500 company. I will not name them now, but one of their core values was integrity. And we had a group meeting, and we all sat at this table, and they needed to hit a particular number in Q3. And one of the managers suggested that what they do is they go back to all the past clients and just increase their policies by a few cents. You do that across the board for thousands or hundreds of policies and adds up. And I had to stop him right there. I said, look, how are you going to say that one of your core values as a business is integrity, but you're willing to slash your clients just to hit this number? The value has to be portrayed from the top all the way through the organization. In other words, the CEO should know the values. Your employees should know your values. Your clients should even know your values. So this is so important. Again, thank you for sharing. I'll pass it back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Keegan. That was good. Very good discussion. Let's again switch a little bit here. And Edgar, I want to know more about your thoughts on coaching as it relates to organizational performance, both individual and corporate performance. So how does coaching directly impact, okay, I'm the CEO, I have numbers to hit, I have customers to satisfy, I have a board to respond to, so forth and so on. We're talking about coaching. How do I take the concept of coaching and put it into action so that I see improved outcomes, both individually from my team, as well as collectively from our organization?
Yeah, no, Mark, that's a great question. And, and this actually came up recently when I did another presentation around how do you motivate people to meet individual and company goals, right? Whether that be, how many widgets are we making per quarter, or how much profit we're making per year, or how many sales we're getting, right? How do you get there, right? And I think for starters, we can all agree, right, that no one likes to be told that they have to do something and then be constantly reminded you have to get there. And if not, there might be consequences. No one likes that. That's not the type of workplace culture anyone wants to work in. I'm sure we can figure it out, but it's not nice, right? You probably will leave that type of environment after a couple of years to the burnout, right? You're not going to do that, right? On the flip side, if you do it in a way where you are setting expectations, saying, look, we have to do X this quarter or this year, right? This is the goal. And here's what I expect of everyone. And by the way, I will help you get there, right? If you need me as a resource, or here are resources you can tap into. Here are trainings you can take. We'll have a performance evaluation system where you can, where we'll have an opportunity to see how you're measuring. If you're putting things in place where you're letting people know that, okay, we have this expectation that we have to meet these, goals, but I'm not going to, create this environment where it's a zero-sum game, meet these goals or else. That leads to a more positive experience for the workers and more healthy work environment. And guess what? It's going to inevitably increase productivity, right? Because people feel that, that I have support to help me get there, right? We've all put in our best work when we feel wanted and appreciated, right? It's just it's a human trait that I don't care what content you're on, everyone has that trait. If you feel that you value what you do and you feel wanted and you feel supported, you're gonna put in your best work. You're gonna work longer hours because you don't see it as if you're giving time to someone. You're giving time to yourself, right? Because you're investing in yourself because you feel that there's a social contract in the workplace where you do that, and then on the other side to be positive reinforcement, right? So all this to say is that I would just encourage leaders, right? Never go into a situation where you need something from your employees and make it a zero-sum game, or just avoid having the tough conversations around, well, how do I make sure that I get my team to a desired result, right? Because whether you do it abrasively or you just don't just avoid a conversation, people notice. They'll hear what you're saying in the negative aspect, and they'll hear what you're not saying, right? So always have a plan on how to do this. And I'm a really big believer in performance evaluations, right? They can be time consuming, but I think it's a great way to give people an opportunity to take stock of what they've accomplished, give them opportunity to think about what they need to work on. Then you have an opportunity to look at everything, look at their, how they're performing, and you have a candid conversation around what's going well and what's not going well, right? Because it also gives you more data points to figure out, okay, well, what do I need to do to get this person to do better in this area, right? And together you might identify the trainings they'll need, or maybe you adjust the performance metrics, right? Or the job description a little bit, right? You kind of do that work so that people feel that they're in their best place. So again, it's hard work, but I think it's very valuable to do that. Just because, again, I think the benefits are, one, hopefully you get to your desired goal that you've identified, but two, is that immeasurable benefit that you're building someone's confidence over time, right? And even if a relationship doesn't work out in the long run, the person can't say that I was treated like crap and I left, right? They can say, you know what, I worked really hard, this wasn't a good fit, it didn't work out, we did everything possible, to make this work, and it just wasn't a good fit, and we agreed together that I had to transition out, because ultimately, and I want to take it back to workplace culture, and I want to ask this question, right? By show of hands, we have told someone at some point to not work somewhere because it was a terrible workplace culture, right? Show of hands. Don't be shy. We've all done it, right? What does that equate to? Who wants to answer? What does that equate to? Anyone? No wrong answer.
Maybe a lack of respect.
Yeah. Anyone else? Reputation. Your workplace culture is your reputation. It's your number one marketing piece, right? If you have a poor workplace culture, no one's gonna work for you. You're gonna get undesirable people working for you because they have no other choice, right? You always want to be in a position where your workplace culture is strong enough where it speaks for itself. And if someone leaves, or if someone even stays with you a long time, they're getting their best people to come work for you because they'll say, hey, come work for this place because they have a great culture everyone feels valued, everyone feels respected, like it's not toxic. You should definitely come work here. Hey, I left because of whatever reason, but hey, you should go work for this place. You get the training, people really look out for you, and people want to see you succeed, right? Think about how powerful of a marketing tool that is, right? Some firms spend no money in marketing, right? $0, but have such a great workplace culture that they get great candidates all the time. They keep people for very long periods of time, right? Zero marketing dollars, but great workplace culture. So just want to leave you there.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I think hiring to culture is critical in sort of that reputational risk or advantage that you referenced there. I know at our firm we go to great lengths to make sure that we're looking at people through that particular culture lens to make sure I'm not worried about their skill set. I'm more worried about their fit. And I think that's a switch for a lot of managers who've been managing as long as I have, right? Is to look through that lens as opposed to look at your resume and see that you have 20 years of, progressive skills and growth, instead of looking at sort of the softer side of culture and fit and will you be part of a bigger team, and will you fit into that bigger team? So I think it goes to the whole hiring process as well, Edgar, there.
Yep.
Keegan, on the same topic, I want to get your opinion on what Edgar just talked about as it relates to performance, right? Coaching, draw me a line, if you will, between coaching and individual and corporate performance. How does coaching help the individual and the company perform and meet their goals? Because at the end of the day, you pointed out earlier, everybody has a goal, right?
Absolutely. Great question. So on this particular point, I think that knowing your people, so critical. How am I going to ask David to go do something for myself or for our team if I don't know anything about what's going on in his life? Theodore Roosevelt has a quote here that I just think always stands out to me. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And there are a lot of really intricate and simple ways to do this. For example, when's the last time, if you're in a leadership position, that you just randomly text or called one of your teammates and it had nothing to do with work? I'm not calling you to ask about your numbers. I'm not calling you to ask about that sale or presentation you just did. I'm calling to see how your son just did on his first soccer game. How's your wife doing after her surgery? These are the things that actually matter. And the reason why this is so important, and how this ties back to your question in how coaching is the effective leadership tool here, people are not going to go to bat for you if they don't think you're going to go to bat for them. There's so many simple ways to enact this, but again, if it's appropriate, I'll share my screen really quickly, and you guys will have this too as a visual, but there are two sides to it, right? There's the con, which is the dictatorship. This is the approach where we are leveraging our power, not our skill set, right? We're just saying, hey, do this, right? And that breeds a lack of commitment because people haven't come up with their own solution. They haven't got any buy-in themselves. They're operating out of fear. If I don't do this, what is my manager going to do? Am I going to get fired? Am I going to get demoted? It's less thought flow. If you have an organization and you have people in front of you, you should be leveraging their brilliance. I mean, the truth of the matter is, more corporations win the lottery than any individual person. Why? Because they have a sum of energy going to the same end result. We can use this in the leadership world. If we have a mass amount of energy because all of our people are bought in because we've asked them questions and we know what's going on in their life, they're going to get way better results, right? They're going to come up with brilliant ideas. So that's the alternative here, of course, is the pro into the coaching approach is you're going to reach that end destination together. I know that Mark has my back and I can rely on him if I need to. And that gives me more courage and confidence to move forward, even if there's a little bit of gray area here. It leads to open communication. Look, it's not always going to be butterflies and rainbows. There are going to be difficult conversations that must be had. It's a lot easier to do that if you feel you can openly communicate and you don't have to walk on eggshells to convey your point. Better ideas. People are going to work harder. Total conviction and buy-in. People are self-managing. You know, if you feel like you're under a dictatorship, as soon as that clock strikes 4 or 5 or whatever the workday ends, you're checking out of there and you are gone. But if you're bought in and you say, hey, even though Mark isn't here with us right now, I know he had to go home because he's taking care of his family. I want to get the results in his absence. And so I stay an hour or 2 hours later, or I do a little bit of extra work on Saturday because I know I can rely on my people and they can rely on me. And that goes back into your culture. So a couple quick ways that you can enforce this. Again, random calls and texts, nothing to do with work. Super important. One-on-one or group activities. I used to open offices all across the country, and every Friday night we had a team night out. One of my favorite things, I always looked forward to it. Our team night out was very simple. We would close up the office and we would go out as a team to have dinner. You can bring your significant other, you can bring your kids, whoever you want to bring, doesn't matter. Let's be a team. Let's be a family. Sending birthday and Christmas cards, you know, listening to people. That comes back to communication and asking questions. If I know, you know, that Alan is a huge sports fan and likes a particular sports team, maybe I just send him a random gift because I know he's having a bad day. That's going to bring him up, which leads to this infinite mindset. So now the energy is up in the office and everybody performs. So anyway, these are just a couple of examples, again, back to how coaching is going to help you get to these results. You're asking the questions. You're getting people bought in. You're getting their viewpoint and their knowledge. And we move the needle forward so much quicker this way.
Let's, Keegan, would you share that again? Because I want to go up to section 2 in your PDF here, and switch gears a little bit for both you and Edgar. And the power of questions is an interesting concept, and it's a note I have here to ask. So I'll start with you, Keegan, since you have the document shared. Tell me about the power of questions, and then I'm gonna ask the same question of Edgar, so you can prepare, Edgar.
The power of questions. Does anybody in here have a child, or children, I should say? Does anybody have 2 kids or more? Great. Okay, I can't see everybody. Can you keep your hand up for one quick second? Awesome. Thank you. Yolanda, we haven't heard from you. So if it's all right, I would love to hear your viewpoint here. Was there ever a scenario where mom wasn't in the room and you heard something break and immediately you're like, oh, it's this kid. This kid did it. Right? Have you ever had that scenario?
So I can come out with an idea, but I try to give the benefit of the doubt. I've always tell my children, I love you all the same differently. Because I have a middle child. I was a middle child with somebody else. So there was always different levels of dynamics in our family and today with my own children. So I try to give the benefit of the doubt, and I try to also bring some of that in work. So I think if that's an answer you're looking for, but that's what I usually try to do is try to first wait before I throw out, hey, why did you do that? So and so, I know it's you. So I just wait for it to play out just a bit.
Beautiful.
So I hope that answers your question.
Super powerful leadership skill, by the way. Super powerful leadership skill. And what I'm specifically referring to from what Yolanda shared, giving your people the benefit of the doubt. You know, now I said that kind of as a joke because as parents, we've all done this at least once. There's been at least one moment where something happened. We're like, I'm putting my money on this one. This is the guy or gal that did it. My point is, and the reason that we're using this as an example, I love stories, by the way. I think stories always stick with us. But the reason we use this as an example is because in that scenario, if you were to just jump the gun, not do what Yolanda does, not give the benefit of the doubt and wait it out, but just automatically assume or point the finger, what happens is you're not leaving an environment for open-ended questions or communication. People don't want to speak to you because they're afraid that they're going to get reprimanded. But if you ask somebody a question, instead of pointing blame, especially in the workplace, and you automatically go to a question, what you're allowing people to do is speak freely, and you're getting true feedback. Again, this is going to help promote communication, but what actually ends up happening is we get to the end result the fastest possible, right? Because again, everybody on this call, you all have something different that you bring to the table in your workforce. And people need that. Like, you are unique as you are right now. People need your knowledge, your gifts, your skills. Sometimes we don't know anything about that if we just make statements. So questions give us knowledge, and it allows us to respond the best. So in that light, and I'm sure you guys have a ton of excellent acronyms here. I like FROG because it's super simple. It's only 4 letters, right? Miller's Law states that the average adult only remembers about 5 things short term. So we want to keep it as short and sweet as possible. So FROG is very simple. And again, if you guys have excellent ones here, please send them to me. I'd love to hear them. But F is for family. You know, again, these are just examples. Let's say you're in a leadership position and you have a person on your team and you need to ask questions to get their buy-in or whatever the scenario is. These are good ones to start with. It's just a simple rubric. Family, you know, tell me about your spouse. How long have you been together? Where did you guys meet? How many children do you have? Do they play any sports? What do they like to study? Are your grandparents still around? That's incredible. You know, tell me about your parents. What about cousins? Where did you grow up? Family. R, recreation. Hey, you know, Alan, what do you like to do when you're not working? What do you like to do when you're not with your family, when you just have your own time? What are some of those activities? Do you like to fish? Oh, occupation. Now, this goes 2 ways. If we are in the workforce talking to somebody that obviously we're very clear on what they do for work because they're either working for us or our team, we probably don't need to ask, how long have you been working here? Do you enjoy it? Those aren't the right questions. Some better questions might be, hey, you know, David, what's your favorite thing that you do each week here? That's a pretty cool question, right? What is the big picture for you? You know, Megan, where do you see yourself 5 years from now in this organization? Or maybe you're not in this organization, right? Outside of the workplace, again, the questions are a little different. The theme is the same. How long have you been working here? Do you enjoy it? What's your favorite part? Are you going to retire there? And then G, geography. How long have you lived here? Where's your favorite place that you've traveled? What's your favorite local restaurant? How's the weather? Right? So again, asking these questions helps to get buy-in. I remember being in the sales force, and one of the most important elements to conducting any presentation was rapport. Rapport. I've got to get to know you because you don't care what I've got until you know about me. And this is the same with our team. If we're in a leadership organization, asking questions brings the walls down. It gives us more knowledge and information, and we can get conviction from our people. And this is such a powerful thing to do. So I'll pass it back over to you, Mark and Edgar.
Edgar, yeah, would you again talk to us about the power of questions from your perspective, Edgar? Interesting to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I was kind of thinking about my response, and something that came to mind, which is this, you know, leadership is the ability to, well, let me put it this way. Leadership is gaining data points to make reasoned decisions, right? And one thing that I counsel my clients to do, take when they're faced with important or serious HR decisions, is to slow things down. right? And let's get some data points. And that really ties into the power of questions, right? Because what's most important is to make a reasoned, well thought out decision. And the only way you can do that is if you have the right data, to help you make that decision, right? And so I think with the power of questions, I think it's a built-in way of giving yourself time, to really understand where someone is coming from, as to Keegan's point, getting to know them, right? Just really understanding the full, all the things you need to understand about the person, the situation, the implications, so that way you make a well-reasoned decision, when it comes to something that you have to decide from an HR perspective, and so to me, the power of questions is important in many ways, right? To Keegan's point, it's important because, you want to get to know people, because that helps you understand your team better and the people you work with better. So that way you become more of a cohesive team, in the way that you communicate, in the way you work together, in the way you resolve conflicts when they arise, because conflicts always arise even amongst well-functioning teams, right? And also as a leader, when you're faced with important decisions that might impact the way you interact with staff or HR decisions or resolving conflicts, it gives you a moment to take a deep breath and pause and get data points, right? Because you're asking questions. I've seen a lot of HR, disasters happen because someone simply didn't take a moment to ask the right questions, or take a step back and consider their options, right? They decided we're going right in, we're going to make this decision. And like, well, why'd you do that? I don't know. Like, well, you mean you don't know? I was presented with this, and I just made a decision. Like, well, you didn't ask questions? Like, no, I did not. Well, if you had just asked some questions, you wouldn't have been here in this situation. Now we have to now clean up, right? So my advice to you as a leader is to, or if you're in a leadership role, is to never ever make quick decisions when it comes to people. If anything, you should be getting to know your people over time. But certainly when you have to make important personnel decisions, take a moment to get data points and ask questions, whether it's directly of the person that's involved, or in general, other people, coworkers, research, whatever it is. But just make sure you have you answer any unresolved questions, because you never want to be in a situation where you made a decision, it was a poor one. When someone asks you, well, did you consider X, Y, and Z? You have no response to them, because ultimately it's a compliance issue, really, and I've seen messy workplace conflicts become legal issues because people didn't take a moment to get data points, and it's just not where we want to be.
I particularly love the concept of employees modeling great leaders, i.e. great coaches' behavior, right? So tell me a little bit about that, Edgar, and Keegan, I want your input on that as well. Sort of like, have you seen where employees working in a culture led by a great leader who's a great coach begin to model that behavior for the good of the overall organization?
Yes, absolutely. And I think to hopefully bring it home, right? Like we don't do, like, we do this for many reasons, right? We do it because it's good practice. We do it that it's good for the world. We do it, it's good for your organization, and it's good for, keeping your employees, right? And retain it and bringing in, good talent, right? There are so many benefits, right? But I would say that one important benefit that we haven't discussed, which, which goes to your question, Mark, is the idea of that you're trying to train new leadership, right? At some point, someone has to take over, right? And if you're building great leadership from the ground up within your organization, one way to do that is to promote good behavior and ensure that it's modeled by the employees, right? And this is not and part of it is it happens naturally, hopefully, right? Part of it is you have to measure for it and engineer it, right? And you do that through constant positive reinforcement, or if you see someone doing something wrong, you have a conversation with them, right, about it and correct the behavior along the way. You do the performance reviews, and you maybe part of the review is, are you an effective communicator? Are you modeling the mission or the vision or the culture that we're looking to cultivate here, right? You might identify someone as a potential leader, and you'll say, well, for you to be a leader in this organization, you have to do X, right? And so that might incentivize them to model that good behavior, right? So it's not something that you should leave to chance, right? For some people, yes, it might work, but it's something that I've been discussed a lot today that you have to cultivate, right? And there are many ways you can do that. But you want to keep that in mind when you think to yourself, well, why are we doing this for, right? I've named many reasons why, but one of the big things is, if you want your organization to grow and one point to be around for a long time, right? You don't want to put all this work as a leader for your organization to fall apart, when you wanted to retire, you want to leave, right? You want to know that I'm entrusting my organization into people that I know will take care of it, and they're going to model the behavior and the leadership and the coaching that I've been doing, right? That's what you're doing it for ultimately, right? It's for your organization to survive. Which I would think is the number one reason why we become leaders, by being entrepreneurs or getting leadership in organizations that we're in, is that you want it to survive, right? And the only way you can do that is you cultivate the next leadership to embody the values that you want to survive within your organization.
Thank you, Edgar. Keegan, could you address the same issue about employees sort of modeling behavior? I did a presentation to a group of new supervisors / managers last week or the week before, and one thing that I pointed out, and I always use the same concept, is that employees spend a good deal of their time looking up, right? And what I mean by that is, it's obvious to everyone, they're looking up at leadership, right? And so great leaders who are great coaches, the concept is that employees will hopefully model that behavior. I'd like your thoughts on that, Keegan.
Absolutely. Several main points to this. I think one is a quote that I love. If you light yourself on fire, people will come to watch you burn. And it's so true, especially in a leadership role, right? Because everybody is watching every little detail of what you do. And so, I think that the best leader is not somebody that's looking to cultivate their employees. The best leader is the person that's cultivating the next leader. The best leader is somebody that's finding, who is my replacement? Who is going to fill the role that I am in? And then you're giving them the skills to do so. That is a good leader. That shows me that you're leveling up. When you can create fulfillment by generating other people's purpose, that's the end destination there. There's a story I'd like to share with you guys really quickly. I love stories, always have. So I was in the finance world for a very long time. When I first got licensed, there was a guy, Ron Stevens. Now, he had been trained, had his licensing, everything 2 months ahead of me. So in that industry, he was my senior. He was a beast. He was crushing the sales force week after week after week. This was our number one sales guy. After about the 6-month mark, he hit a plateau, stopped making sales. And this guy, Ron, got bounced from team to team to team to team. And finally, our manager brings all of us together and says, hey guys, look, I just want to let you know, we're letting Ron go. Wanted you as the management team to be the first people to hear about it so you can help us soften the blow. And I was like, put him on my team. I'll never forget that our boss's name was Antonio. I actually just talked to him this morning. Antonio goes, He's not going to do anything, man. He hasn't made any sales in 3 months. We're letting him go. I said, look, put him on my team. Just give me 2 weeks. Just give me 2 weeks with him. And the first thing I did, I didn't ask him about his business. I didn't ask him about his sales. I didn't care about any of that. I took Ron out to lunch, filled his gas tank, and asked him about his family. We talked about his family, about his personal goals, about what obstacles he was seeing in life. Had nothing to do with business. I didn't care about the business. It's about him. If he doesn't feel good, he's not going to operate for us. That's the leadership that I wanted to instill in him. And I wanted him to see that, hey, we are pulling our people outside of the office and we actually care about you. This man went on to have 3 of his best weeks back to back to back and stayed with the organization. To this day, over 10 years later, he's actually one of my paying clients. The reason I share this story with you is because when you operate from that level of understanding that emotional intelligence, that empathy, people are going to show up to watch that. They're always watching you. But if you can put your emotion to the side for a minute and help people get those results, then they're going to want to be you. You know, they're going to want to step into that role. So if you are a good leader, you're looking for that next leader. It's not about what you get out of it. It's about who am I finding to fill my role, because I know that leads to the best for the organization.
Got it.
That's my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you. We are running up against the clock, so I'd like to do 2 things if we could to wrap up here. I'd like to ask both of our presenters to give closing statements, their thoughts on the concept of that we're talking about today in terms of coaching is the best leadership, and then give them a couple of moments to give a short commercial about their practice, about what they do and how to get in touch with them after this. And Keegan will make sure that we get your PDF out to all the participants today. So Edgar, would you kick off with a closing statement for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for participating in this conversation today and listening to us. And I hope that you got some benefit from what me and Keegan have said. I would say that my closing statement it revolves around being present and intentional as a leader, because I find that those 2 items are super important to what we discussed about today, right? Because again, it's very easy to be a manager and just tell people what to do and not have relationships with anybody and only be, only care about the bottom line, right? It's very easy to do that, but it takes a lot more skill, compassion and time, to do what we are talking about today, right? And that takes the ability to be intentional about the things you say to people and the actions you take and the planning and having foresight. And it takes compassion to meet people where they are. And I believe that having those 2 things are critical to good leadership and to employ coaching practices in your leadership, right? Because these things take skill, right? And you can only develop this skill in a meaningful way if you give it time and you give it the intentionality and the compassion that it entails. So I hope you all take something with you all, whether you're in leadership or someone who is being led by somebody, because I would say that it's also important as someone who's being led by someone to let people know how you like to be led. Something that I always ask in interviews of people that want to work for me is like, how do you like to be supervised? I ask them point blank, and I make sure that I get an honest response, because everyone wants to be led a different way. And to me, it's my way of being intentional and compassionate, right? To really get to know someone and how you want to be led and what's happening in your life, because, I will lead differently based on the person in front of me, and that's what I hope you all will take with you all today. Thank you.
Thanks, Edgar. I appreciate that. Keegan, would you give us your final thoughts?
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you to all of you. I think that you're taking a very important step just by being here, because leadership is about leading by example, right? And just the fact that you're here shows that you care and you're involved and engaged in this. So I want to keep this short and sweet. As a leader, we selflessly serve our people first, because we know by doing this, it selfishly comes back to us. It might not happen right away, but it always happens. So if you put your emotion to the side for just a little while and you focus on serving your people to the best of your ability, they will show up for you when you need them most. And that's the biggest thing I'd love for you guys to take away from this today.
Thank you. That was great. Keegan, while we're with you, why don't you give us a short commercial for how we can get in touch with you, what your services are, and then we'll switch it over to Edgar.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll do this as quick as possible. Growing up as a child, I had a very different upbringing. Everything from abandonment, abuse, being molested, ADHD, speech impediment, suicide, addiction, homelessness, all of that happened before I was 17 years old. I had every reason to give up. I found an organization, fell in love with it. It became my salvation. I started opening offices across the US and I loved it. And that's what got me into coaching. I love helping people go from those dark times, having their back up against the wall, nobody on your team, not knowing where to turn, to literally building the life of your dreams. I predominantly do this through 4 platforms. I do a lot of community groups. I also do one-on-one coaching. I host retreats and I do speaking engagements. So I will shoot a calendar invite into the chat if you guys would like to connect. I'd love to connect, love connecting people, and really just want to get to know you guys better. So thank you again for having me here today.
Thanks, Keegan. That was great. Edgar?
Yeah, so again, thank you all for being here today and listening to us, and for the opportunity to market myself. So I'm an outsourced HR consultant. My company is Fickium LLC, and I work with organizations primarily with 1 to 100, work as a headcount as a part-time head of HR or supporting of existing HR departments. And we can essentially help design and build HR infrastructures from scratch. We can also help with routine day-to-day HR support, such as helping you make decisions on various personnel matters, doing conflicts amongst employees or with employees as a manager, helping you make decisions that that come across your desk from time to time. But what we really like to work with our clients on is strategic HR. Making sure that you're building the types of workplaces you want to have when it comes to your culture, making sure that your HR needs align with your business needs. So a lot of change management and recruiting, and just making sure that, as you grow or change the organization, that your HR strategy matches up with it, because we don't want to make sure that the last thing that will impact your business is not being good to your people or not putting your people in the right positions to be successful. So I will, Mark, if it's okay, can I send you my material so you can send to the
Absolutely
today?
Yep.
Yes, I'll do Mark send you more information about my background, my services, and where to contact me. And hopefully, if you're interested, we can do one-to-one sometime soon.
Perfect. Thank you both. Keegan and Edgar, can't thank you enough. Great presentation, great insights, great experience to pull from, and hopefully a number of nuggets to be taken away by our participants here. And finally, to our participants, thanks so much for taking the time. It's been a great hour, a little over an hour, to spend time with you and hear from these two intelligent and experienced gentlemen. So until next time, thanks everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye, everyone.